You mentor several young people. It is something you take great pride in. One of Ohio's problems is the brain drain. How do we do a better job of keeping our best and brightest here in Ohio?
We need to have an extensive system of internships that start at the high school level and that go on through community colleges, through universities, that really actually allow students to get actual credit for work that they do in a real life setting. You see, the work that I did even as a judge that was in poverty showed me that the way that you start to make massive changes in issues like poverty is not by throwing a bunch of money at it, but it's person to person. And if you think about a mentoring situation, an internship situation, the benefit to both sides is that the student gets their foot in the door for a job, because that's really what they're looking for, is to have a job. And the employer gets a chance to really look at that student and know that they're going to get a good employee. And at the same time, oftentimes it's free for the employer. For the student, they're earning credit. And in the end, we create a nexus there where they're more likely to stay here. But that's something that can be done on a massive scale. I've seen what Governor Kasich has talked about, where you've got the new industry coming into Ohio with oil and gas, but we've got a situation where there's a lag time to get the universities up to speed to provide the training for the people so that we can hire from within the state. And those issues require some real concerted effort on the part of state leaders.
There has been some controversy lately from a certain corporate executive who has said that women should lean in and not pull back from achieving the heights of their profession. In reading Cupcakes and Courage, you seem to have it all, right down to the wonderful loving family, the 2.7 dogs, the grandchildren, and everything. Is it possible for professional women in such tough business climate as this to have it all?
Well, I discovered in the Senate race that there is difficulty, and you don't nationally have enough of a critical mass of women in the Senate, in the House, in the highest positions in corporations. And so anything's possible, but the reason I wanted my nieces at election night, the night that I won Secretary of State, was the best way that you could demonstrate to them that you can have and that you can be whatever you want to be is to show them. And I had to make choices when I had a family and I had a career, which I still do, but I didn't run for office until my youngest child was 14. Now, other people, I watched Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she was able to do that much earlier, but every woman has to really know what works for them and to be realistic. And I knew that I had to anything extracurricular I did either had to be related to my job or my children. So you become a band booster president, you become a PTA secretary, or you provide free work for the local Democratic Party. You can't always have it all at once. But Sheryl Sandberg's message about leaning in, I think it's becoming easier to lean in and to actually call people out for things that we shouldn't be saying or we shouldn't be doing. But I'm all for anyone in a high-profile position like her shaking things up a little bit, getting people to think, because it'll only improve the opportunities for women to take on leadership roles, which I think will sort of change the tenor, because women do approach things a bit differently.
What, from a public policy perspective, keeps you up at night?
Right now, I mean, there are things, I'd say overall, the public policy perspective would be the influence of big money in politics and how it affects policy. See, I saw in the Secretary of State's office, because what we did with elections was, in a sense, very retail, because one decision could have this ripple effect among individual voters. So one little tweak in the process can create long lines at the polls, be the start of lawsuits that delay the closing of polling places, which affects not just Ohio, but it affects the whole country and even the world. And so when I ran for the Senate, what I saw was how policy was made based on political contributions being given to a caucus, to individual members, and how that affects the lives, the everyday lives of Americans. I mean, you can go back to when McGovern in the 70s decided that, what can we do as a subcommittee to improve the nutrition of Americans? And in doing so, they said, well, eat less dairy, eat less meat. Well, the dairy and the meat industries came in wholesale and said, oh, no, you don't. So McGovern thought, well, let's just be smart and we'll just break food up into what its nutrients are, except food is organic and it doesn't just parse like that. So now we have a whole generation of fat kids whose bellies hang over their pants, where if you look at music videos from the 1980s, those kids didn't look like that because they didn't eat all the processed, chemically altered food. But it created industries that we never had before, and they sort of pivot off of each other between diet, nutrition, and large food growers. And that has to do with the influence of money in Congress, and that has to change.
I've always thought of America as a self-correcting system. Can we correct the problems you have talked about in your book, Cupcakes and Courage, before we go too far?
As long as we protect democracy, as long as we protect access to the ability of people to participate. I mean, democracy is messy. It's always messy, but if it becomes so one-sided where it becomes too controlled by major moneyed interests, so that we're hurting the good ability of everyday Americans to have their voice, to have their say, and to participate in what is really the greatest democracy the world has ever known, then we are in big trouble. But if we go to the core of what makes us American, which is the rights of individuals to participate, then we'll get through this.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about this issue or to watch this video or other similar videos, please go to www.communitysolutions.com, where you can find all sorts of interesting research on various public policy issues, and you can sign up to receive updates. I'm Gene Krebs, and we are all high on Ohio.